Okay, I was asked to do a presentation on the DX cluster and other things. How many people in here use a logging program to log your contacts when you talk to someone on HF, whether it be digital, voice, CW, or whatever? Okay. And I know that a lot of folks here use the N3FJP program because Steve and Larry and all have set that up as far as the contesting when they're doing the contesting that are out there to keep the club scores together so that it can be reported together, which is kind of neat. Others do that as well, but that's what they're using. Anyway, with that being said, there are a way for people to see the latest spots that are out there of DX spotting that's going on worldwide. And the logging programs that people use have built into it so you can telnet to a DX cluster to see exactly what's going on. Now, you have to remember that with the DX cluster, there are people reporting from all over the world through the cluster network. Now, once you're on the cluster network, there's about 4 or 5 different cluster network programs. There's CC cluster, AR cluster, and several others. And there's usually anywhere from 300 to 400 cluster nodes, which I have one running here in Dallas as well, out of the whole network worldwide. Out of that, you're going to have anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people on the network spotting at one time, or not all at the same time, but throughout the process of a given 24-hour period. Now, some of the folks here who operate the contest or just looking to get on the air to see what's going on, like Dave, for instance, who uses it religiously, and Chuck and some others, and Larry, what they do is they see something that's of interest to everybody, no matter if you're here in Maine or New Mexico or somewhere else, and they'll spot that information. And when they do that, it shows up on the cluster network worldwide so everybody can see what's going on as far as that station. Now, when there's a de-expedition going on, like what they were talking about earlier, then people really keep an eye on the clusters because they want to know where it is so they can go find them, because you can't listen to the whole spectrum of the band all at one time. So the spotting network, which started back in the middle to late 80s, was used for that purpose. And it used to be, before the spotting network was put into place, a lot of the folks who were trying to spot stations worldwide would have certain ways of doing it. They had a beeper network where you'd get a beeper, your beeper would go off, or a one ring on your telephone in the middle of the night. So if there was some big DX station on, you get a one ring, and then you'd meet on a repeater or something, and everybody would say, well, they're on so-and-so frequency, on sideband, whatever. And then as things moved along throughout the 80s and 90s, where everything was done that way, and then they moved over to packet radio, which packet is used for a lot of different aspects of the hobby. And that's one of the digital modes, like CW being the original digital, and then RTTY, then packet. Now you're into FT8 and PSK and all the rest of it, Olivia, and all those other modes of operation. So they had networks set up using packet radio. And then that was big. There was a big system here in the Atlanta area that was for years, and the Southeast DX Club had several nodes around that were tied in on the packet network. Then came along the internet. And then with the internet, all of these worldwide nodes are instantaneous. Here they are. You can see everything that's going on regularly over a given period. The biggest thing that makes the spotting network interesting and makes the spotting network worthwhile is that if you see something and you put it up there, like Dave has said on many occasions, and if you'll notice right here, they'll put up, this station is being spotted, what frequency they're being spotted, the mode of operation, and they'll put a comments section in here, like this is FT8, or signal S9 was good QSO, thank you, Bill, or other pertinent information. That's just a thank you, pat on the back type thing, but other information like he's listening 5 up. Dave worked him 17 times on 3 different bands running a kilowatt, whatever. You could put all that information like that. You put all that information in there so that, people can see, or if someone's on and they're running lower power, they say, this DXpedition's on and everybody's chasing. I found him, he was on 15 meters and I worked him with 10 watts. So, and of course, if you're looking at the gray line, like what, and the propagation, like Larry has given us multiple times over the period of years, or the past year or so, we can look at the gray line and you can see what's going on or where the gray line is. So you're following the gray line to help you, and then of course by doing that, then you go look at your propagation numbers to see what the propagation is doing.
You want to explain again what the gray line is?
Yeah.
Larry, tell what the gray line is. Explain that. You've done it. Well, no. The reason I say that is he's done it before, and when he did it before, he did a really nice job explaining what the gray line is.
I've slept since then, but basically it's...
But you had to say in the Holiday Inn, though.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
It's a transition between daylight and dark, or dark and daylight, and it's when your F layers for propagation descend or ascend depending on daylight. Daytime you got 2 F layers, nighttime you got 1. Usually your low band frequencies will work at night, or your high band ones will work during the day. The gray line, if you can get a signal that goes along that path, you can work just about any band, just depending on where the other station is, as long as you're on that path. So, in short,
That's why I asked him to explain it, because the way he had explained it before when he did that presentation a while back on gray line propagation and K and S and all that, everybody could pick up on what's going on. So there are a lot of people out there that will only operate when the gray line is there, and they'll only operate like 160, 75, or 40 meters or whatever, because they take advantage of that on those frequencies, and they can run lower power, have less antennas, or big beams, whatever, and get a lot of bang for the buck. Even if propagation is not the greatest in the world, you can still operate and get some really good distance if you follow the gray line. And we all know that during different times of the day, and if you look at what's going on as far as the bands are dead. Oh, they're terrible. You can't talk to anybody. Yeah, you can. And I'll tell you this little story real quick, and I've told this story. Chuck's heard it 3 times, and he just gets sick of hearing it. But there was a guy that I knew when I lived in Virginia, big DXer, and he built antennas like the gentleman that was here last meeting and gave a talk on the antennas, which was superb. If you missed it, I'm sorry. It's great. It was fantastic. But this gentleman that I knew, he's passed away now. I stopped at his house one day, and he was a big guy on building wire antennas, but he built wire antennas that were like quads. He'd build quad beams, 4-element, whatever. But that way he could get away without running a lot of power and have a real nice antenna, although he had power if he needed it. So stopped one day, and he said, I said, let's get on the radio just, for a minute. And he said, oh, okay, great, where do you want to go? I said, I don't care. He said, 15's wide open. Well, as everybody knows, 15 is not usually wide open, okay? But he said, 15's wide open. I said, okay. So we went to 15 meters, 21 something, I forget where we were. Static, nothing. No CW, nobody talking. Of course, this is before digital got big, so this is back in the 80s. And he said, oh man, it's wide open. I said, okay, I don't hear nothing. He said, oh no, it is. And he said, just because there's nobody talking, think about that, just because there's no one talking, that doesn't mean that the band's not open. Because if no one's talking, the band can be open, but you would never know it. Okay. The spotting network has helped that, because if someone hears something 1,000 miles away, they may spot it. You may not hear them, but they may hear it, and you can hear it. And a lot of times, most of the time on the HF frequencies, your DX will run from north to south. So if someone from Nova Scotia or England or the northern part, or northeastern part of the United States is hearing someone, eventually, hopefully, that propagation will move this direction. So if you start listening, you might hear them, and they get better. So, exactly. Exactly. So you keep your eye. That's another good thing for the spotting network. Okay, so anyway, he said 15's wide open. So he got on and he said, I can tell you it's wide open. I'm still shaking my head. And so he gets on the frequency and he gives his call sign. His call sign was K4PQV. And he got on, he says, K4PQV. And nobody came back. And I just kind of smiled. I said, he's pulling my leg, ain't nobody on. Gave his call again. Somebody came back to him, it was about S5 or 6. Hey, Frank, how you doing? It's kind of nice you're on the Ivory Coast today in Africa. He looked at me and he says, I told you 15's wide open. So what he was telling me was, and tried to ingrain into me, just because no one is talking and you don't hear anybody doesn't mean the band's not open. Yes, you can follow all of your tools like Larry has showed us in the past with your propagation, your forecasting, and all this, but that doesn't mean that the band's not open. Now, another thing that has brought that home to a lot of people is the FT8 mode. Because with FT8, and a lot of people don't like FT8, they think it's going to kill amateur radio. Well, they thought sideband was going to do the same thing, which it didn't. But, they say, well, it's going to, you can run a lot less power and talk to people all over the world on a little nothing antenna. So it's really opened up things nicely. Even if the bands are not in the greatest shape, you can work 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles easily by doing that. Which brings me to, if you want to get on the cluster to be able to monitor what's going on, what I have with this cluster, and I use BB Logger, and the reason I use BB Logger is because it has a cluster built into it. It also has down here, you can see it's got PSK and RIDI and all that if you want to use that. And it has other things into it where you can do searches, you can filter your spots, where when things come up you can see, and if you want to be able to click on it to see where it is, if you're using the control for your radio, you can do that, just like some of the others do. A lot of them do the same thing. This one's free and I like it. I like the way it operates. Another thing too that it has with this, and I use on my bulletin board too, my packet bulletin board, which is incorporated into this as well, you can go and you can look at any of the messages that have come across. So if you go down here to messaging, you can see the messages that are in here, like the ARRL DX propagation, 425 DX news, and all that. You can look and see what's going on. So if you right click on it and read the message will come up and it'll show you, that's the calendar, I don't want that. It will show you, it's supposed to, but it hasn't done it yet. This internet is super slow. Anyway, it'll bring up that message and it'll show you what that is, just like you can find on the internet, but this is right into the program. Now, a lot of the logging programs will do this as well, where you can look at the messages or whatever, as far as that's concerned. You can also send, announcements from here. You can see WWV, you can see the gray line propagation. The last 10 WWVs are on here. You can see all of those things. And you can, of course, see what's going on as far as the spots that are being spotted. So what I'm trying to get at with all of this is something that I have put on the air for people to use. You can telnet to it via these programs, like your logging programs, and you can follow the spotting network. Now, Larry, Chuck, Rick, Dave, some of the others, in our organization, our club here, use this and use it every day. Some of them stay logged on. I think Chuck's logged on right now. And they stay logged on all the time so they can see exactly what's going on and go back and do a research. And you can do, you can do searches and all kinds of things and look up different calls and if they've been spotted and messages that have come across as far as that's concerned. Now, another part of this, other than the DX cluster, and I'll put this on the website too. There are commands that you can use on the DX cluster that you can do different things. You can do searches, you can search calls, you can search DX frequencies, all different things you can search on the cluster. If you look at what's going on the cluster, this is the server at my house which is running the cluster right now. I'm logged into my PC at the house. And what it's doing is, if you notice, this is on the left-hand side right here. These are all the cluster nodes worldwide that are sending data across the network right now that are populating that so you can see. And if you set your filtering up, you won't see all this, of course. You're going to only see what you want to see. Or if you're looking at the raw data, you may see all the frequencies, all the calls, depending on how you set it up. Now, I know Larry and Chuck have set up some filtering too, so that they only want to see FT8, or they only want to see this frequency, or they only want to see CW, or they only. So you can set your filtering up so that you can only you filter what you want. You don't have to take everything, and so it's there to use anytime you want. I also have
I'm just curious. There are, for example, on entry FJP, and we've talked about this a little bit. There are several. I'm not quite sure the terminology, but there are several cluster servers. Is that the proper?
Mm-hmm.
That you can select within that particular piece of software. What makes one better than the other? Like you've always suggested that use yours, and you've given us the port number and so forth.
right.
What makes that one better than some of the others that are offered?
Okay.
What's unique about it?
Okay, there are, as I said, there are about 4 or 5 different cluster programs that the nodes are connected to. You've got CC Cluster, which is the main one I'm connected to, which is run by VE7CC out of Canada. That's where CC Cluster comes from. Then there's AR Cluster, which is the original cluster that was out up in Connecticut that came out years ago. And then there's Skimmer, and there's another one, I forget the name of it. So what I've done, if you look down here at the bottom, I'm connected to VE7CC, which is the CC cluster. I'm also connected to AR cluster. I'm also connected to Skimmer. So what it allows me to do is I'm connected to all of the major clusters. It's not just one. So, and the duplicates will not show up because it filters the dupes. So if you're on
More data.
no. If you're on AR cluster, say that you're sitting here, and somewhere across the street somebody's on CC cluster and somebody's on something else, and everybody hears the same guy and spots him all at the same time.
Right.
It'll filter that so you only see one spot. You're not going to get all these duplicates. Same guy, same frequency, same time, same everything. It'll filter it. But if you don't see it on AR, but somebody sees it on CC, you're going to get the best of all worlds because you're going to see everything.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant. Okay.
So I'm on everything so that you see it all. And some of the web-based clusters, like some people use, don't do that. They're only one. They don't have everything. And then you
that's
get
that's a distinct advantage. Then.
right.
So,
And if you'll notice,
I realize that. That's
right. And if you look at some of the clusters that are out there that are web-based clusters, and you look and you see what if you had them side by side, me and somebody else, you would notice, gee, I'm seeing a lot more spots coming out of Lee than over here. And you're leaving it wide open. You're not filtering, but you're looking at everything because I'm getting stuff that nobody on their cluster network is spotting anything, or maybe they're spotting it on AR or one of the other, Skimmer or something
it's
else.
essentially more data.
Right.
That's being collected and made available.
Right, and it gives you the ability to be smarter about what you're doing because.
You got more to filter with.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Lee was really one of the first ones out there to put FT8 spots out there.
Yeah. So you can do searches on FT8 or whatever. So, or whatever you want to do, Olivia, CW, side, whatever you want to do, and you can filter it accordingly. So, and like some people, they may set their filtering up to say, well, big contest this weekend, I only want to see this.
Yes.
So you set it, and that's all you see. You don't see the other stuff because I'm only interested in that. Or you've got the main QSO parties on, and I only want to work the main QSO party, so you're only going to see things coming out of main, so you filter it accordingly. And you can set those and filter them like that, or a mode, or a contest, or whatever.
Yeah.
That you can do that. Also, I have the ability. If you look at this is the page that's right off of the network here for my server. The routes that I have, it shows routes, and it'll show nodes, and it shows the links. Also, off of here is driving the WX4PCA-10 on 75 meters, and you can see what -10 is running and who's been connected to that and sending traffic through Winmore through the WinLink system that Ron talks about. So, that's available as well. So, and you can see the stream status of what the server's doing and what's connected to what and who's doing what. So I've got all that. That's raw data that anybody can see, and you can look at and see what's going on if you want to. It's just for geeks, but if you wanted to do it, you can. And then what Neil was talking about earlier about the packet, we're connecting up with North Carolina and South Carolina via RF. I'm already connected to them through different nodes on packet radio to where I'm connected to the network for the nodes that go into the Carolinas and other places in the world. So I can click on something if I want to connect to, and this always blew my mind when I first got involved with this type of thing, where if, they're not on here right now, but if there was a station R1 ABC in Moscow was on packet, one of the packet nodes, I could connect up and just say connect. And bang, I would connect and I'd be there and I'd go right out on VHF in Moscow or whatever. You do it that way. A lot of people, who's heard of UZ7HO? He writes a program for packet stuff that you can use. Andy is on the worldwide chat server just about every morning. You can get to him through me. Just log on and he's usually there and you can chat with him. So there are a lot of people that are out there that can answer questions, a lot of the movers and shakers that are available for you to talk to. Any questions? Am I going too fast, going too slow?
Santa on there?
Who?
Santa Claus?
Santa Claus, not yet. It's too early. He's sleeping.
He's resting up.
He's resting.
Got a question here.
Yes. Yes.
Very elementary, how do you get onto the cluster? How do we as individuals get onto
You can, very simple. What logging program are you using?
N3FJP?
All right, so if you're using N3FJP, you go to where it says cluster, where you can hook up Telnet to the cluster, and he's got a certain amount of clusters in there. Not all of them, but if you want to add me to be able to get on and be there, then you have to go to one of the experts that does that, because I don't use N3FJP. They're all pretty much similar, but if you go to a Larry or you go to a Chuck and they can tell you exactly what to put in, it's very simple, or Dave.
You go into rig setup, you go into DX spotting, and then you disable the spotting part of the module, you get into that module, and you go up there, you just change the telnet site and the port,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And all you have to do to log in is use your call sign and hit enter, you're in.
Yeah.
Then you can set up within the program, the software that you're using, then you can set your filtering. If you want to filter, if you don't want to filter, if you want to filter this but not filter that or whatever, then you can do all your filtering. So you can do that, so you can see the spots coming in that way.
Yeah, for example, a filter that makes sense to me. Since I only have a general license, I only filter for general class operations. In other words, anybody that's transmitting in the extra portion, I don't want to see because I can't work them. And if I do see them and I work them, I'm in trouble.
Right.
And I've had that happen. So that's an example of being able to filter.
And Tommy has gotten on here recently. What are you doing for how you got your setup?
I did just like Dave did, put it in, but I noticed after the contest, it's not animal. So if there's a way to put it in that list of nodes permanently would be cool.
No, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's.
I sent N3FJP a note, and I said to him, you've got these in there. Is there any way you could add me? And I sent him, it's WB4QOJ.node-ip.org, port 7373.
Several months ago. And then
A year ago.
yeah.
And I asked him, and he said, well, next version, he said, I'll think about doing that. He's had like 3 or 4 versions, and he hasn't done it because he wants it to default to his cluster. See, that's the thing. But if you put it in there, and you've got it in, and Chuck's got it in, do you have it so it stays in there, or do you have to?
No, it stays.
Stays in there unless delete the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
talk to
it's-
these guys. Talk to these guys.
But hang on, Tommy, that's interesting. So when you run a contest module or a different module in N3FJP, you have to go in and input put that on that particular module.
Yeah,
Is that
on the
correct?
software, the contest software, you have to go in and put it in there. You can turn, once it's in there, you can turn that off and on and, close the program down and open it up, it'll still be there, but it doesn't transfer from the basic program over to the contest software.
Yeah.
I may not have it in my basic logging program, I might have just used it on the contest.
Oh, then you gotta,
It's
yeah.
not in there.
Yeah, because of the module, right, it's only saving it within the module, and then when you're out of the module, it's not there anymore. It's not in the general piece of it.
Yeah.
One thing that I like about BB Logger is when you bring it up, if you'll notice down here at the bottom left hand, I just shut it down and brought it back up, it has new updates available. So if you say yes, and this is what I like about this program, it goes out if there's any updates that are available for DXCC, the Abbeys, which like lighthouses on the air type thing, and any of that, then you can say yes, and it'll download them and it'll automatically update. Now, if you'll notice here a while back, I haven't done it recently, there's been a message that I send out about the country files being updated. You need to update your country files on whatever you're using, but I update the country files on my cluster node so that it's taken care of. Anything that's new DX, change of this or change of that with the new country files that are usually updated once a month, even if there's only one or two things, they still update it. And you can go and get that information and it's already there. So like, I'm sorry.
No, I have a question, and Chuck, I'll kind of defer maybe to you. When Steve is always saying, be sure to update your country list, I'm not quite sure exactly what that does. And then, does that tie in with what you're talking about?
What he's saying is update the country list for the logging program that you're using.
Yeah.
I update the country listing for the cluster so that the cluster is updated. What you're using within your logging program is not updated unless you update the country file for your logging program.
So what happens if you don't do that? I guess.
Well, what happens is, as you notice over the past even year and a half, 2 years, there's a lot of new call signs out there for the foreign countries, just like we added A and N and
Yes.
some of the others. Well, other countries are starting to do that as well. They've been issued a block of call signs for 60, 70 years by the ITU out there, and now they're just starting to use them. Some of the foreign countries now are wanting special call signs, special event call signs, and it's particularly true of special event call signs in the foreign countries when they have their equivalents of state QSO parties.
The MM0s and all that type of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
you have to download, they're probably not in that file, so you have to download all the new prefixes and new
So
countries.
if that gets spotted and I click on it, it may not go to QRZ.
You got
Pick
it.
up.
Right. It may not pick it up because, right.
Boom, the light went on, now I got
Right.
it.
So the logging program is not syncing with what the cluster is syncing with, which is not syncing with what QRZ. So if everything's syncing with the country file, click, goes.
Right,
If there's a link broken in there, it ain't going to go.
gotcha.
So
Yeah.
that's why he says that. But the country file on mine is updated, so the cluster part of it, where you're looking at the spots, it's updated. What's in N3FJP or whatever logging program, you need to update that. That's just like this thing that popped up down here on BB Logger. It comes up and says, hey, this is new. You got to put it in there. I don't have to go searching for it or do this. It automatically does it within the logging program. I don't have to do. Now, I think N3FJP does that too. Don't they have where you
No,
have?
you gotta go tell it to
You gotta
them.
Oh, you got to tell it to do it. It doesn't.
It's got a link, you just say update. file.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's a no-brainer, but it doesn't remind you. So-
right.
No, it doesn't.
What this does, BB Logger, it says that little thing popped up. It's here. You best do it.
There's new
Yeah.
ones. Yes.
It's telling you that you need to do that.
Gotcha. So
So if you log, like when I clicked on just now, I logged on to the cluster, and if you'll notice down here, it says there's 399 nodes. I'm one of those 399 nodes. There's 3 local. I think Chuck's on there, whoever else is on there right now. Usually on contest weekend, there's a lot more local connected to me because of that. 4,279 users worldwide that are on the cluster network now that are spotting. So you may see something come up that shows on the cluster, like these things are coming across here, FT8, and what their center frequency is, like 1190 hertz or whatever, coming out of Japan, and you can see exactly what that is and what's going on with that. Another thing you have to remember too, that if you are looking at this and you're seeing this and you're seeing something that's from some other part of the world, it's nice to know that's where your filtering comes in, where you want to filter.
Yes.
So you don't see, well, gee, somebody in Spain is talking to somebody in,
I'll never get them because.
you know, in
Yeah.
French Guiana. I don't care. You know, I want to, you know, I only want to see what I want to see or what I can work. You know, so you know that's that, which you know makes it nice too.
Yeah, that's a nice feature. I'll just add to that. That if you're seeing spots come in, it doesn't help you if whoever is spotting that particular station of interest, if that spotter is 5,000 miles away. What you want is you want the spots to show up that's local to your either the United States or the East Coast or something like that, because then you've got a chance you can hear them.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
That's another example of filtering.
So the thing about it is, if you're doing any of these logging programs or looking at the, you know, the cluster or whatever you're doing, you got to remember that, yeah, I can turn it on, I can plug it in, I can stick my call sign into it, and you can't just walk away. You've got to maintain what you're doing to stay up on it. You can't just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And you know, earlier on in the earlier years, where cluster spotting was new and in its infancy, before the internet, it was all packet radio and interconnected RF, and this was after the beeper and the one ringers in the middle of the night on your telephone and all the rest of it. That you know, you only had, like what you said, you only may have a local or a regional area that's connected together, and you may only have 3 or 4 nodes and 20 people. So everybody, you know, and then as it moved out and links were made available, and you had people who could start telnetting and slip type things, which was the big thing for, you know, universities did that. Then you could have, you know, telnet. Now you can get out into the wider world. And now that's what it's come to at this point.
Just kind of a funny story. When I was active years ago in the 80s,
I wonder what happened to you.
a guy that I used to work with, he'd keep his 2-meter radio, and of course, he belonged to the Northern California DX Cluster. And there'd be a rare DX reported in it, or he'd just take off from work and go home.
Yeah.
He had that kind of job, he could do that. But that's an example of guys that listen and foster that.
Yeah, that's the pagers, the beepers, the one ringers, you know, and all that kind of stuff. There was a big network that went on for years for 6 meters, especially when it was a lot of meteor scatter or sporadic-y or whatever, to where they would have, you know, everybody knew that there's a possibility that 6 meters may be open, and it was a 6-meter group that was big on the eastern part of the seaboard of the United States, and they had a network with 50 or 60 of them, and, you know, if 6 meters opened up, your phone would ring once, don't make any difference if it was 3 a.m. Your phone would ring one time, and you know to go down and hit 50.125.
Yeah.
Because 6 is wide open.
Yeah, I'm surprised this guy kept his job.
Yeah.
And he was obsessed with it.
Right.
He would leave and wouldn't be back for 2
So
hours.
there's more to the hobby, and of course what we're trying to do here with our club and everything is to hit all aspects. And I know that Larry had sent out a poll recently about what he wanted, you know, what we wanted to see. Well, people want to know about antennas, or they want to know about propagation, or they want to know about DX, or they want to know about contesting, satellite work, or whatever. So there's a lot of aspects to this hobby, and if you kind of get into a niche like DXing or contesting or whatever, this is just one of the tools that you can use
And it's a good tool.
that, you know, will help out for those people who are wall hangers for paper, and I want to get WAS or, you know, whatever, or work all countries or all continents or zones or whatever it is. You know, this helps tremendously as far as that's concerned.
Very much
So
so.
I think a good example of our club about that is Tommy over here. Tommy's relatively new hand. How many years now? 2 years? Maybe 2 years. And by attending these club meetings and being exposed to a wide variety of things. He's into all kinds of things now. He does a lot of research on the internet. It sparked his attention, and as you can see, he's got his fingers in a lot of things now.
And he's a hell of a contester, too.
Turned into hell of it. Yeah.
You run for money, is he?
He has, he really has.
And one thing that I think is really beneficial, like what the gentleman that was here last club meeting that did the talk on the antennas and the wiring antennas, you don't have to have up 100 foot of tower and a TH7 DXX and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You can put up antennas and work a lot of stations and be heard, and you can even break the pileups. And but you got to be smart. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to be a sponge and soak up the expertise of these other people, like this gentleman was last meeting. And he had a lot of good advice, stuff that maybe some of us, the old timers like me and Chuck, and some of the others, Ron, and others that have been around a long time, have maybe heard about or know about, but the new guys and the new folks and the new ladies and everybody, they don't know, so they have to sponge that up, and that's a good thing. And that's what we need to do. It's called being a mentor. And if you read the newsletter on that bio that I put in, at the very end of it, I said, be a mentor. Be a mentor. Help the other guy or the other lady. Be a mentor.
By the way, if I could put a plug in for unionized net, that's a perfect opportunity for, not everybody checks into that, but I encourage all of you to check into that and pose questions, things that you've maybe read and say, I don't fully understand this. And there'll be somebody on there that can offer some advice or at least have a commentary to help you out. It's a great opportunity, and I'd like to see more of us take advantage of that. So,
Even if you don't move in the direction of some of this stuff, it sure is interesting.
Sure, it's great. It's a great hobby. It's something for everybody.
Absolutely.
And some of it's a little bit more difficult to do than others. I mean, if you want to get out and one of the things it's difficult, but it can be rewarding, is people who work EME, which is Earth, Moon, Earth, which they're bouncing signals off the moon.
Yeah.
That can be difficult, but it can be very rewarding. And there's a lot of folks that do that, and they've got up these big arrays where they point it toward the moon and they bounce their signals off the moon. And you can still do it with a modest antenna, but you've got to be able to do it at the right time.
Back in the 70s, I was into that. I had one of them big quad multi-beam arrays up, and you'd sit there and transmit for months on end, just putting out a little beacon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody might answer you in about once every 6 or 8 months.
But there are more people involved with that, and there's some really big guns that operate that kind of stuff. And when the moon is when it's right proximity for part of the world that you're in, and you've got a nice array up, and you point, you can be on 2 meters or on 440 sideband, and all you hear is static. But as soon as you line it up on the moon, it sounds like 20 meters on a Sunday afternoon, because all these guys working. So
Crazy.
it's crazy.
What's the delay time?
It depends. It depends. It can be a second. And it can be longer than that. But if you're on HF and you're working long path, and the first time that I ever ran into long path, I had up a full size cubicle quad, and I was on 20 meters, and people were working this station in Australia, and I lived in Virginia. But I didn't point toward Australia. I shot across the poles and worked that way, and worked this guy, and I was noticing something weird, the echo. And so when I went down the band a little bit, and I went, hello, test 1, 2, 3, and I let off the mic, and I heard myself say 3.
Yeah, that's the neat part, when you hear yourself.
You heard yourself come back. You heard that. You went 1, 2, 3, 3. You heard that 3.
It's about a half a second delay.
Right.
It's quite remarkable.
Right. So anyway, any questions?
I think Dave has one over there.
No, that was my
Okay,
question.
okay.
What was the delay? Because I know when they were talking to the guys on the moon, there was a delay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Back and forth.
Well, that's just like Voyager and some of the others. Now that they're way the heck out there, it may take a half a day for the signal to get back or something.
I think they said, isn't it to Mars, it's like 4 minutes or something?
Something like that.
So
You gotta think about
the guy that I knew did the radar on the Landers.
That's how far the distance.
What's the speed of a radio signal in free space?
I don't know. What is it, Charles?
86,000 miles per second.
186,000 miles per second.
Yeah.
Per second.
Yes.
300 meters.
Rick.
Okay, so if you're running MFJ software and you go and you
MFJ.
deactivate,
MFJ.
yeah. If you're running
M3.
N3FJP. I got N3FJP.
Listen, if you're running the software I use to log, and you go into and you deactivate their cluster, what name is yours? What do you put in there?
You put in WB4QOJ dot no dash IP .org, and then you use port 7373. That's the telnet port.
7373?
Right, and you just use your call sign to log in. You put your call sign and hit enter, and you're in.
No, you only have to change those two pieces of data.
You're in.
Good to go.
Okay.
You're going to change that in no matter what logging software you're using,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And I stay the same. I don't change, but
Right.
you'd have to, whatever you're doing, you'd have to change to that. And if you use something like,
Plus,
you know,
you're going to have to
you
change
could run
it in
you could run FL Cluster and
You're going to have to change it in the contest software too.
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
right, exactly. But like I'm going to bring up here's FL Cluster, which is part of FL Digi. You notice at the top WB4QOJ.no-ip.org, and then port 7373 here, and then my login is my call, and I connect, and watch what happens when I connect. Bang, I'm in. So I'm there.
Put my call in there.
Are you okay? Hang on, let me log off. Put you in there.
Because I don't think it's spitting out all the stuff. Because
CGK. Connect. There you are. Hey Chuck. It says hello Chuck. So
you can also do this on 2 meters.
yes, you can do it on packet if you want to. Come in on packet if you use your signal link or whatever and use that 7HO, you can use packet. So if you don't have internet, you can also go in on packet and do the same thing. So you just go in on packet using your, whatever your signal link or whatever you're using, and use that 7HO in a terminal program, which basically this is. N3FJP has the ability to put in packet, I think. You can put a packet node in there, I think, and do it that way. Some of the others are where you can use packet. Doesn't? Okay. You can use packet, and you can just, hook up your TNC, your radio, your thing, and just, and you packet, bang, connect to them, and you're same thing without the internet.
You can do that all the time. As you
Right.
notice, something just came up on here.
Yeah. This time of the week and day, it's not going to be like it is on the weekends, where on the weekends I can sit and watch it because it's just click, 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 just constant. Yes.
Not pertaining to this, but I just want to let everybody know, a presentation for next month, Joseph Ladd, N3NNU, is going to give us a presentation on summits on the air.
Okay.
Soda.
What was that again?
Summits on the air.
Summits on the air. People that go up on mountaintops. And it's a mode of contesting.
And there's parks on the air. The same thing. Lighthouse on the air. There's a new group out now. It's doing Walmart on the air. They're going to Walmart parking lots, and they've got certificates. They've got certificates.
I saw one.
Walmart's on the air.
Picture of Walmart.
So they go.
RVers?
Yeah. Oh, there's RV groups that do RVing too. So anyway, all right. Anything else? Anybody any questions?
I almost died.
And Larry has got on the website all this information about the cluster and everything. If you want to see that, just click on the DXing part of it, and it's all right there. Okay? All right.
Very good.